Welcome to our commercial real estate series, Behind the Building, giving the audience a behind the scenes look at different aspects of commercial real estate, featuring industry leaders who we work with every day to make it all happen. With me today is Britt McCurry, civil engineer, owner of B.A. McCurry Engineering. Welcome, Britt.
Thanks, Emily. Happy to be here. Excited about
Yeah,
it.
I appreciate you taking the time to be here and talk a little engineering shop and how it actually relates to commercial real estate. So let's start with kind of the foundation, site work, where it all begins, the ground. And so before construction ever starts, geotechnical testing sets the stage for everything that comes after that. Explain a little bit about soil compaction, subgrade testing. What does that reveal, and why they are so critical for commercial projects?
Sure, happy to. So, subgrade testing and soil compaction are very foundational steps. They're literally foundational for every successful build. The processes that we go through to identify the compaction and the soil conditions really tell us what needs to happen before the first, before the first footing is dug, before the first concrete truck shows up on site. It lets the contractor and the clients know what to expect and what to look at before they even break ground. A lot of things that we look at with the different types of testing we do are what we call the soil's bearing capacity, which means how much weight the soil can actually withstand before it starts to fail or move. If you skip that step at the beginning, then you risk long-term structural concerns such as cracking, breaks, or even failure of your system as a whole. So looking at these, the site and the soil conditions ahead of time are very critical first step.
Yeah, awesome. So, from a property owner's perspective, how can understanding the site soil conditions, like you were talking about, how does it influence decisions about development or if they should purchase the property, that kind of thing?
Of course, so it can really make or break a project. It really, falls into the feasibility of the site as a whole. Think about if the site has poor drainage, or when we get in there and do our testing, at what we consider low bearing capacity, which means that the soil cannot withstand the minimum load of the building that you're looking at. It would require additional engineering from the structural side. It would require additional grading or additional site work to bring the site up to minimum standards. So if we come in there and we look at things and we decide that the top 6 inches of soil need to be removed because they cannot handle the loading, compared to coming in and deciding that the top 6 feet of soil need to be removed, that's a very big change between each condition. It's a lot of work, it's a lot of front end expense that the developer is going to have to take on and understand. So it's critical for us to come in and do these tests to make sure that the developer and the contractors know ahead of time what the expectations are.
And in theory, the developer would say, "Hey, Britt, I want to build X size building. Will it
Mhm.
work?" Or
Sure, of course.
I want it to be this type of structure. Does that work? And I think you're probably doing all the calculations to understand if it is feasible.
Of course. So typically what we encounter is we have a developer or a contractor come and say, here's a set of plans of what we would like to build. It's going to be a daycare center, or it's going to be a small commercial site with multiple different retail businesses. Here's the layout. Here's where we would like for it to be, placed within the property. Can you tell us if the site is feasible? So then we would go in and perform certain numbers of tests within their site work, within their layout for the building that they've already pre prepped, and explain to them, here's what we think you need to do. You need to come in and remove X number of feet of soil, and before you even reach bearing capacity or buildable material. And then you'd have to backfill and come in with additional materials. So that gives them an idea of if they have to remove 2 feet of existing soil, it's a lot of work to come in and move all that. And then on the flip side, we have to bring additional material back in to build the site back up for proper drainage or to meet other easement requirements.
And like you talked about, every time you have to take soil out that's not suitable or bring soil back in that is the right kind of soil, that costs.
It's
So
an
that's,
expense.
yeah,
Absolutely. Yep. A
exactly.
lot of labor, a lot of machine, a lot of man hours.
Yeah. So we talk about getting to the construction part of it, you and your team, you do a lot of third party inspections during the lot development itself. What are some of the common issues you help identify and help prevent during construction?
Of course. So let's say we've moved into construction. We've identified the type of soil that needs to be there. The contractors come in and removed, replace the material that needs to be on site. And now we're on site layout, and we have footers that need to be dug. We have rebar that needs to be placed, things like that. And a lot of our inspections involve identifying and making sure that the contractor is laying everything on site per plan or per minimum code standards. So a lot of things that we identify are the rebar layout to make sure it's correct. Or if we get in there and they, for whatever reason, we find a soft spot in the soil where they've dug down for a foundation or a footing, we can then identify and make recommendations for, we need to add additional rebar, or we need to shift this footer and redesign where this column's going to be, placed within the system. So a lot of the third party letters that we provide are just ensuring that everything is laid out correctly and properly during construction. And that allows not only the contractor and the owner some peace of mind, but it allows the contractor to move forward with the county and allows construction to be a little more smooth.
So, are the third party verifications required by the county, or what service are you providing in that third party? Obviously it's of value because you're making sure that the job's done right
Mhm.
and that it meets the standards per the plans. So is it something that the county says, okay, if you have this letter from Britt, you'll be able to move forward with the next thing?
It is not a required letter by the county. What it does is it allows the contractor and the owner to have an additional member that has really some skin in the game. Say we've come out and we've said that these items are correct or they are incorrect, and we need to make sure they're correct. We need to fix them, and here's what we need to do. What it also allows is a little bit of, I would say, not necessarily speed, but some more efficiency within the construction process. It allows us to come in and sign off on things without waiting on the county to come out and do a full inspection at different processes. So it allows the contractor to move forward, save time, save money. Our expense is minimal compared to waiting 3 or 4 days for the inspector to come out. So it really helps speed up the process and gives, like I said, it gives everybody a little extra skin in the game to say, hey, we have done our due diligence and this is correct.
Yeah, time is money, and
Yes,
you are kind of incurring the liability and double checking that the contractors have done it right. And if you see
absolutely.
something that isn't quite up to snuff, you can bring that to their attention and they can quickly fix it and then move on to the next phase, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So, how do the engineering inspections that you do throughout the construction process, how does it help maintain compliance, reduce everyone's risk? We talked about that a little bit, and then protect an investor's long-term asset value.
Yeah, so like you said, we touched on it a little bit already. It gives them an extra layer of assurance or really insurance that says, hey, this has been done properly. It has been done per plan or better than plan in the event that something is encountered that needs to be adjusted. It's from a liability standpoint. It safeguards against that. It gives the owner of the property, whether they're going to be a short-term owner and they're renting it out, or they're a long-term owner, it's an investment property. It gives them the little bit of peace of mind to say, hey, this is going to withstand and hold up and hold up to our investment.
Yeah. And long term, they won't have to make significant repairs in 10, 20 years related to that foundation. So, yeah, that's an assurance right there.
Hmm.
So, going to design and collaboration with your clients, you've worked on restaurants, you've worked on retail design projects. What are some of the biggest engineering challenges that you see in some of those commercial buildings that may have some age on it or, newer? Just what are some of your
Sure.
challenges?
Yeah, well, one of the things is just tight time frames. We talked about efficiency and saving the contractors time and money and what that means overall for the project. That's one of the things that we run into. the other item is structural retrofitting, looking at an existing structure, as you mentioned, and they want to come in and make some changes or maybe even remove a wall or add some utilities to the roof structure, such as an HVAC or even a hood, a cooking hood, or something for the kitchen. Those things, and from a commercial standpoint, are much larger and weigh a lot more than your standard residential units, and the layouts are much different. So there's a lot of considerations that go into that of, given the existing structure, can it be modified? Can these things be installed? When they're installed, are they properly supported for not just the weight of the unit, but wind loading? Making sure that from a safety standpoint, we don't want your physical items to be damaged, but we also don't want the people that are in the restaurant to be harmed either. Their life is more important than just the tangible objects. So looking at how those loadings are going to be installed and how those things need to be placed are really critical for the owner and for the contractor and for the safety of the patrons.
Hmm. And you talked a little bit about HVAC, and when you're trying to coordinate with these different systems that are very important to every commercial property, how do you work with all the multiple contractors and other engineers, like mechanical engineers and those folks, on a single project to make sure that the design is both functional and truly buildable, that it'll work?
Of course, so it's engaging early. It's engaging with the contractor and each subcontractor or person that has skin in the game early, and making sure that we're on site, we're walking through, we're having these discussions. A lot of our designs are based around constructability. Our team has construction background, not only in the residential side, but from a commercial side as well. So understanding that, not everything's cookie cutter. There are multiple different options for a repair or an install, and just walking through those options with the contractor to make sure that it does make sense, that it is feasible. We're very open with the contractors when we have conversations and say, here's what we recommend. If they come back and say, well, what about these options? Can we do this? Can we do B instead of A? We're more than happy to walk through that and give recommendations on those options.
Yeah. So your team also helps to identify repairs in existing retail and other commercial spaces. You've actually helped me on a commercial property look at some structural issues that was, I think, almost 100 years old. So what are some red flags that you see in your day to day that signal a property might need a little structural love?
Yeah, so the biggest thing is, cracking. If you see any kind of cracking, whether it's in a floor or a wall or sheetrock or the exterior brickwork, those are some red flags that say, hey, maybe there's an issue. That's not always the case. A lot of times with concrete, what we tell everybody, concrete cures forever. It's always curing, it's always setting up. You're going to have stress cracks, normal curing cracks, or it's just a normal part of the process. But there are times where those cracks are not normal. They're not part of the process. You've had a subgrade failure or unloading somewhere that didn't need to happen or wasn't designed for. So those can be concerns. A lot of times it could be a shift in the foundation, or one point has failed and is causing the floor to slope. Moisture is a large issue as well. If you have gutter systems or a roof drain that's stopped up, it can localize a lot of moisture in one location and start to deteriorate and break down wood items, wood structures. So definitely a large concern on the moisture side of things.
Yeah, and we certainly, with all the humidity, that's a big consideration in crawl spaces or, underneath the
Absolutely.
structures if it is a crawl space. But our properties are kind of a living, breathing thing
Yes.
with all the elements that it's introduced to, water from rain or snow. And so to your point, whenever you do see those cracks, it's better to be safe than sorry and have your team look at these things to see if it is an aesthetic item or is it something that you really need to pay attention to. And so, to that point, when you're working with even homeowners, property owners, looking at their residential investments, commercial properties, and a contractor says, hey, I see this crack, we're going to need to do some fixing, they have to call you, right? They have to ask B.A. McCurry team what you would recommend, and you write a report to whatever the fix is supposed to be, correct?
Correct. So we do what we like to call prescriptions. We're prescribing what needs to be, what the repairs need to be and why, like what the root cause of the issue is. A lot of times we can look at a crack and just say, hey, we're going to seal it or we're going to band-aid it. But what really needs to happen is determining the root cause of that crack. What is the reason this is breaking? What is the reason this is tearing? And what really needs to happen to repair it? Contractors can make repairs, but that doesn't mean it's always the correct prescription for the repair. And what we like to do is provide that prescription, and that way the client or the owner can give that to multiple contractors and have, quotes come back apples to apples as opposed to apples to bananas. It
Right.
just makes a big difference when you have a prescription in hand that says this is the root cause and this is what we need to do.
You've done the calculations. You've
That's
done the
right.
hard work to
That's right.
ensure that that's going to be the right repair for the
Yep.
property. Awesome. So, as we round out this episode for landlords managing older assets, owners, how can the periodic engineering reviews from a company like B.A. McCurry, how can it help extend the useful life of the buildings and avoid costly surprises down the road?
Of course. So with these engineering inspections, we like to catch small issues before they become large issues. It's always better to err on the side of general maintenance as opposed to a major repair item. What we see most of the time, like moisture intrusion or small fatigues and some framing items, if we catch those early, we can make a very simple recommendation of how to make the repair. And then, it would avoid costly, more extensive repairs in the future. If we, determine that there's some fatigue in a foundation footing and we identify it early, as opposed to, doing a complete reconstruction of something that fails, we can come in and do a much smaller repair and save the clients and the owners significant amounts of money.
I like that term, foundational fatigue. It's a little tired. It needs a
That's right.
little help, right?
Yep. It needs a nap. Yep.
Well, Britt, thank you so much for being a part of this Behind the Building series. I encourage viewers to reach out to me as I want to be your resource for all things commercial real estate. I can help connect you with Britt and other professionals that you need to ensure that you protect your commercial real estate property and your returns. And thank you for joining us, and be sure to keep an eye out for future Behind the Building interviews with other awesome industry professionals just like Britt.
Thank you, Emily.